Esau basically, as we saw, removed himself from the project of Am HaNivchar and building a place for God's divine presence very early in life. How do we understand the pshat? Esau didn't need the Bechorah. The Bechorah is the chance to inherit from Isaac, right? So he basically made a conscious decision. Better that I take 50 shekels now, or however much money Yaakov gave to him for the Bechorah, and the present value 50 shekels or whatever is better than the future value of what I stand to get when my father, who could very well live for well more than a century from today, will pass away before me. That is, Esau made, it's like speculating on a woman's ksuba. You guys have learned that sugya, right? How does buying a woman's ksuba work? Have you heard about this? It's in Ksubis, it's in Gittin, it's in other places. A woman stands to get, let's say, 200 zuz from her husband in the event that the marriage comes to an end through divorce or if the husband dies. So she will stand to collect 200 zuz. That has a certain value to her. But the problem is the value is reduced because it's in the future, in the uncertain future. It could very well be that she will predecease her husband and end up getting how much? Nothing. So sometimes there's a man who comes along and says, you know what? I will pay you, woman, let's say, 50 zuz today for the right to collect your ksuba if and when your marriage comes to an end. So the woman would say, better to have 50 zuz in my hand now than to have to wait for a potential 200 zuz. Speculation, that's all. So too, Esau made this decision. Perhaps it was an unwise decision, but Esau thought that it was better now for this. But then we read about how Esau basically removed himself. He took himself to a neighboring country. He went to Eretz Seir, even before this whole brachos thing started. How do I know that? Because it says in Parshas Vayishlach, Esau left because there wasn't enough room for him and Yaakov where they lived. Eretz Mugurehem. It says, V'lo yachala Eretz Mugurehem l'seitotham. There was not enough room for the both of them. That's why Esau went to Seir. When Yaakov came back to the land of Israel, land of Canaan, he came back from Haran. It said, where did he send his emissaries? To Seir, because that's where his brother lived. But you're telling me later in the Parsha, Esau went to Seir because there wasn't enough room for the both of us. This land ain't big enough for the both of us. The same language used when Abraham split up with Lot. Yeah, okay? So the question is, wait a minute, when did that happen? Esau went and said, this place, and he took his wives and his children, everything he had, all that he had built up in his life. He couldn't stand living next to Yaakov. There's too much. They're both too wealthy in Eretz Mugurehem. Yaakov's been living in Haran for 20 years. So why did Esau go to Seir? It means that in the time since Esau first married and started a family, he married eventually 3 women. Could have been very well be 6. It depends on you understand the contradiction between the names of his wives. Has many children. He has his 12 sons, his 12 tribes of Esau. And he left very early on. He went before Isaac even said, Esau, try to come back. I want to have you involved in some way. It means that Esau had left already. Esau left to Seir while Yaakov was still in Eretz Canaan. That's explicit in the pasuk, which means it happened before Yaakov had to flee, which means it happened before Yitzchak even intended to give Esau the brachas. Why? Because the whole event of the brachas is what led to Yaakov having to flee from Esau. Esau planned to kill Yaakov after this whole blessing thing. Yeah.
Are you moving it all the way back?
One more time.
Yeah.
Esau lives in Seir.
Yes.
Says, when did Esau go to live in Seir? Because he couldn't get along with Yaakov. They had too much. They're both becoming too wealthy. Mm-hmm. Yaakov runs away from Esau when Esau's trying to kill him. That's after the blessings. Yaakov comes back. Now he's going to have to confront Esau. He sends messages to where Esau lives. It says Esau went to live there because he left, because there wasn't enough room for him and Yaakov. If Esau left to Seir only once Yaakov left to Haran, why would Esau go to Seir? It says he went to Seir because there's no room in the land for him and Yaakov. It means that Esau went to Seir while Yaakov was still living in Eretz Canaan, before Yaakov went to Haran. Yes, that's what it means. I was surprised that Das Mikra doesn't point this out. They say that, they gave a shot. Esau went to Seir once Yaakov came back. But Esau was living in Seir already. That's how the parsha begins.
With the expectation of him coming back.
No. in expectation of him coming back.
Yeah.
He ran away. He was, I killed my brother. He's not expecting him to come back. Says, I'm waiting for him to come back so I could kill him. Remember? Just a little bit longer, my father will, dad will die, and then I'll kill Yaakov. And then that's why his mother told him, get out of here because your brother's trying to kill you. Okay? He's not like, oh yeah, I'm trying to kill Yaakov, but you know what? Because he left behind nothing, Yaakov Avinu left behind nothing, right? Left behind nothing. He shows up to love himself with nothing, which means what? The pasuk says Esau left and took all his rechush and all his wives and all his children because the land wasn't big enough for the both of them. Which means that before the brachas had been given, Yaakov and Esau had already begun to establish themselves. They're 63 years old at least. And you could look the psukim 63 that Rashi brings, according to the Medrash, is the lowest possible figure for when this whole blessing thing came out. Remember, Esau married at the age of 40. Esau becoming someone. It's no surprise. How many men did Esau have? When he needs a small army, he gets more than Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu needed a small army. How many people did Avraham Avinu get when he needed an overnight army? 300 something, right? Esau can get, I need 400 men. Can you get 400 armed men to follow you into battle if you needed to right now? What does it tell you about Esau? Just like Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu commands a small army. Avraham Avinu has dealings with the kings of Sodom, defeats kings from Mesopotamia, and has dealings with Pharaoh and the king of the Philistines. What do you call a person who is dealing in that league? Nasi Elohim, okay? Godlike president or president of God, okay? Yitzchak Avinu continued that tradition, if you could call it that a tradition. It is no surprise that Yaakov, who had, shtei machanot, many servants, also he's going to have to go to war. He has followers also, but those were the ones he developed in Haran. Whatever he had was basically Yitzchak's possessions. Why? Esau realized, I sold my birthright, that is my right to inherit Isaac, to my brother. It was supposed to be divided what? 2/3 me, 1/3 Jacob. Instead, now it's all 100%, 3/3 to Jacob. That means Jacob basically had.
They didn't switch.
He just gets. Wow. He just gets 100%. So what is it? Yaakov is an Ish Tam. Look at all the different shots. What is Ish Tam, by the way? Look at Rashi. Look at Unkelus. Look in Rabbeinu Sadia Gaon. What does it mean, Tam Shlim? It means he was honest at certain things. What is it? Oh, Yosef Olim. Was he a shepherd? Was he studious? Or was he in the base medrash all the time? 3 shots. Everybody knew Yaakov Avinu was a good kid. It was very clear that, look at him. He's a successor to Isaac. He's going to inherit everything. He's just a goody-goody. Esau is inherited. Everybody sees what Esau is. It wasn't a secret what kind of personality Esau was. He removed himself already. The point is that Isaac wanted to bring Esau back into the whole picture. Now that we established it from the psukim themselves, Esau was out of the picture. Isaac wanting to bless Esau was what? His attempt to bring Esau back into the fold. And God had to show him, God and his wife had to show him, no, God wants no role for Esau in this great project, building a place for the Shekhinah. Remember, the house of the fathers was the Mishkan of the time. That was the temple. That's why the Medrash connects the miracles of the temple with what happened in Sarah's tent. And if you don't believe me, I compiled all of the Midrashic ideas behind this in the introduction to Haggadah Pesach. So please get your copy and help support the printing of other publications. And if you don't have your copy, you can contact me directly. There's still a few left for sale. So please help out. So you can look there, and you can see that the tabernacle basically was Isaac's tent at the time. Esau had no role there. And Isaac had to, unfortunately, get this from God, that there's no room for Esau, and that's what he acknowledged right away. Gam baruch yeh. I have no brachas left for you, Esau. You're out of the picture, and that's why he calls Yaakov back and says, Yaakov, you're the real deal. Go get married. God will give you Eretz Migurecha. That is, Eretz Canaan already was Eretz Migurecha of Yaakov Avinu up until that point. That's why it says in the pasuk, Eretz Migurehem, the place where Yaakov and Esau dwelt, was not big enough for the both of them. Eretz Canaan is referred to Eretz Migurecha when Yaakov first got the brachas, and that's what it says why Esau had to leave. The Eretz Migurehem wasn't big enough for both of them. So Isaac was basically now acknowledging the reality. Now I have to ask you this question. Eventually, Jacob's descendants would be given a commandment. Do not cut any peace treaty with them. Don't get into any major deal with these other nations, and do not grant them favor, whatever that means. Lo tuchonim. There's a lot of drushes and chazal. What mitzvahs specifically? What can't you give them? Don't give them a place to hang out here. Don't give them free gifts, etc. Lo tuchonim is a complicated one. Don't invoke a covenant with them. Lo tichroth lahem berith. About whom is that speaking? Some say it's about all the Gentile nations. Others say more specifically it's talking about the Canaanites, the 7 Canaanite groups. At the very least, it's referring to them. Yet, even though that would be a commandment given to us, I read the Bible, and I found that, Abraham had a few Baalei Brith. Who were they? Aner, Eshkol, Mamre. What was their ethnicity? They were Amorites. They went to battle with Abraham. The sages say that they helped him with the circumcision. They were his top men. So Abraham and Mamre was his landlord. So Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre are what we and I consider good Canaanites, good Amorites. Later, Abraham makes a covenant with the Philistines, and Isaac does likewise. Later in history, King David will have a good alliance with Hiram, the king of Sor. Sor was Tyre. That was a major Phoenician center. Basically, the surviving Canaanites, the northwest Canaanim. Canaanim, without a doubt, that was the Canaanim. I'm not talking about, among Canaan, you have Amorites and Hivites, Jebusites. These are the Canaanim, the grandfather of all of them. Their king is now allied with David, and is a major collaborator with Solomon in the building of the temple. Very strange, right? What other example can we give of these strange alliances with foreign groups or even rival groups? There was another one off the top of my head. Yeah, but they took on peace. So we work with them. By the way, the Givonim came to host what? The sanctuary. Saul eventually chose, where are we going to put the sanctuary after he destroyed Nov? In Givon. And David HaMelech, who does he deal with in order to buy the place of the temple? Ornan, the king of the Jebusites, was still around in Jerusalem. King David tolerated working with the Canaanite king and with the Jebusite king. I'll buy for you. It's like they were friends. What's going on? Yet Esau has to be taken out of the picture. Yishmael needs to be chased away. Later in the Torah, in the Tanakh, we're going to read that when it came time to build the second temple, who wanted to help out? The Samaritans. Anybody know the pasuk, what it says there? Very interesting. It sort of gives away the game because the way Ezra introduces the Samaritans. Who are they? It says, "Vayishmeu tzarei Yehuda v'Inyamin kivenei hagolah bonim heichal." The enemies, the tzarei, the people who caused trouble for Judah and Benjamin, basically the surviving tribes, heard that Bnei HaGolah, the returnees from the exile, were building a temple. L'Hashem Elokei Yisrael, to the Lord God of Israel. So they came to Zerubbabel and to the Rashi Avoth, and they said to them, Nivneh imachem, ki chachem nidrosh le'elohechem. Like you, we also want to worship your God. And what argument they give? They said, V'lo anachnu zovachim. To him do we sacrifice. And it's one of those Krieg Sieve a few times. It's like a dozen places in Tanakh where it's written no with an aleph. Right? The Kri is low. To him do we offer sacrifice, but it's trying to say like, no, we don't really offer sacrifice. The Torah, the sages knew that they're not legitimate in this regard. They were insincere. And what is it? They say that we've been practicing your religion since the days of Esarhaddon, the king of Ashur, who put us here. Remember, they were brought to replace the 10 tribes. So it's 2 centuries later. Wayomer lahem Zerubbabel v'Yeshua. Zerubbabel and Yeshua ben Yotzadok, the Kohen Gadol, at the time told them, no, lo lachem v'lanu livnoth bayith. Okay? No, we're not doing this together. You have no place in doing this. And then Tzara Yehuda basically said, okay, so we're going to have to stop this. Haman and his people wrote a letter to King Achashverosh saying, those Jews are seditious. Jerusalem's a seditious city. It has to be stopped. And Megillas Esther doesn't say it, but this happened in Achashverosh's the beginning of his reign, where they basically stopped the building of the temple. So I have a question now. Guys, answer this with me. The Torah basically tells us that Esau's, Yishmael's, Bnei Keturah, and Samaritans have no place with regards to us building our Jewish commonwealth and our temple. However, Philistines, Canaanites, Jebusites, Who else? Amorites do have a role. Gibeonites, they do have a role, always directly related to the temple service. What is going on? Good question, right? Especially because the Torah says, don't deal with these people. It says, and do not, by the way, do not abominate, don't reject an Edomite. He's your brother, right? The Canaanites are slated for destruction. Philistines are mortal enemies. There's not that many wars against the Edomites recorded in Tanakh. There's some, there's the whole rivalry going on, but the Edomite is your brother, and there's nafkaminas lahalacha. The Egyptian also. Okay, what is going on? And here is the unfortunate shot I will offer. Esau, Yishmael, Bnei Keturah, the Samaritans all had one thing in common: their perception of God's service. They are trying to take our place. The Samaritans had a religion which is basically a copy of Judaism, a falsified version of Judaism. They were insincere, but they claimed, oh yeah, we also worship you, the God of Israel. So we've been doing this since the times of Esar Chadon. But we know that their religion is bogus. Their Torahs until today are what? They're crude copies of our Torahs. Their religion is a corrupt Judaism practiced by people who are not really Jewish, but who claim to be replacements for us. Edom, Christianity, same thing. They claim to be the new chosen ones, the replacement theology of the Christianity. We have the same Bible, we have the same God. No, Christianity is false. It starts with the kernel of truth that is Judaism. Like we said before, anything good you could find among Christianity came from Judaism. And all the bad stuff is their own Narishkeit, that whole thing with deifying a man, worshiping a dead Jew, kind of weird. I'm a Jew too, and I'm alive. Why don't they worship me? That'd be pretty cool. But, just the Christians out there, if you're very frum, I'd be happy if you would send me your money. And, you want to, no, but we say that with seriousness. It shows the falseness of their religion. They also claim to replace us. So Christianity, Islam, another religion that's an offshoot of Judaism, they claim, now they're the chosen ones, etc. Whatever it is that they do, those types of ideas, like Esau is going to take Yaakov's place, Yishmael is going to take Isaac's place, the Samaritans are going to take our place. There is no room for that. However, if you have even Canaanites, Philistines, Amorites, Jebusites, etc., and like the Gibeonites, they accept, you know what? We'll play along with your game. We'll be Geri Toshav. We'll keep the 7 commandments, and we'll play along with what you're doing, and we will not create our own religion whereby we claim to be the real chosen ones and not you. So that's fine. That's why Abraham can tolerate the honor Eshkol and Mamre. They acknowledge his mastery. They know that Abraham will be the owner of this land. They follow along. He is their leader. You could have a Hiram Melech sword. You could have Philistines. Why? Well, the Avimelech and his people, they fear God. They don't create their own religion like the Rambam would say. They're not trying to replace us. So that's okay. And that's why Esau had to go. And that's why certain Canaanim didn't have to go. It's just because they're subservient. They're not trying to replace us. So we could give them a chance to be in here.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.